webinar is live now.
Please go ahead, Mark.
Kindly send a message to me on that particular platform. I can't find it again, please.
Okay.
So I can have a look at the list of sponsors again. Just send a hi or something.
You're live, Ma. You can go on, please.
Please send a message to me on that platform again so I can have the list of sponsors. The one you sent to me earlier, can't find it. List of sponsors.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can, please. We're starting right away, sir. We can hear you.
So it's not clear.
Is everybody ready?
Yes, we are.
Okay, good afternoon,
clear?
ladies.
I think you can hear now. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
You are welcome to the afternoon session of the first day of the West Africa Agribusiness Show Colloquium. We had the morning session earlier, and we were able to discuss a couple of things. And okay, thank you very much. I can see that. Thank you. We had celebrated and very experienced people in agribusiness discuss with us, and we took away so many things. And part of the things that we discussed in the morning, the things we took away, include that government should prioritize agriculture, allocate resources, make conscious effort to account for such resources, create an enabling environment to leverage private sector investment, create incentives for private sector to invest more in agriculture, encourage private sector involvement, see the private sector as partners in progress, catalyzing in financing and providing infrastructure. Before we go any further, let me acknowledge our sponsors. We have quite a good number of them, starting with FarmSun, Livestock Feeds, Institute of Agribusiness Management in Nigeria, the Rome Business School. We have Agro Nigeria, Livestone News. We have West Africa Fertilizer Association. There is also the Nigerian Association of Chambers of Commerce, Industries, Mines, and Agriculture. One more time, I'd like to welcome us to the afternoon session. This session is going to be moderated by Mr. Kazim Adio. Mr. Kazim Adio was the secretary to the government of Osho State some years back. I think he's an economist. I don't have his CV here. I don't have his resume here. But I know he's very well versed in matters of the economy, agribusiness, and the rest of them. He was with us last year. Mr. Kazim Adio, you're welcome as moderator. We also have three people who are going to be in the panel. They include Dr. Debo Akonde, Mr. Michael Achimpong, I hope I got that pronunciation, and we have Ambassador Ayola Olukoni. Mr. Debo Akonde is the executive advisor to the government of Oyo State on agribusiness and is the DG of the Oyo State Agribusiness Development Agency. He's a senior specialist with the IITA here in Ibadan, and he has more than 20 years experience, or close to 20 years experience in international development management. He is the Sub-Saharan Africa IITA Head of Agribusiness and Mechanization, and is also the former head of station of the Olusegun Obasanjo station in the DRC, the third largest IITA research for development station in Africa. He leads the IITA. Hello? I thought somebody spoke. Okay. Dr. Akonde leads IIT Agribusiness Management globally with a special focus on public policy, new business development, and private sector engagement in agribusiness for economic development. He has piloted several agricultural development projects with verifiable success, which includes recently the World Bank Integrated Project for Agricultural Growth. Let me leave it at that. He's also a doctoral researcher with the University of Hertfordshire, United Kingdom, with a specialty on agribusiness, strategy development, and management. And next on the list, but certainly not in any way smaller, is Ambassador Ayola Olukoni. Ambassador Olukoni is the Director General of the Nigerian Association of Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines, and Agriculture, NASEMA. He graduated from the University of Ife in 1979 with a BSc in Social Studies, Political Science. He joined the Nigerian Diplomatic Service in July 1980 after his National Youth Service in Jos Plateau State. His first diplomatic posting was on attachment to the Nigerian Embassy in Brussels. Belgium. Nigeria's diplomatic outfit of Luxembourg serves as the Nigerian mission to go in 1983. In 1984, Ambassador Olukoni returned to the university for his PG studies in international law and graduated with postgraduate diploma in international law from the University of Lagos. Between 1986 and April 1989, he served in the permanent mission of Nigeria to the United Nations in the US in New York precisely, where he covered, among others, the work of the second, the third, fourth, and sixth committees of the UN, as well as the Security Council. He returned to Nigeria in 1989, and in line with his insatiable quest for knowledge, he enrolled for another PG studies at the University of Lagos. He graduated from UNILAG in 1991 with Masters of International Law and Diplomacy with focus on international environmental law. Ambassador Olukoni, I want to welcome you. He's a passionate environmentalist and serves as the vice chairman of an environment NGO, Fight Against Desert Encroachment. He's also an associate of the Nigerian Mountain Project. He's a member of the UN Association of Nigeria, UNAN, an avid golfer. He is a cultural enthusiast who loves poetry. Ambassador Olukoni, you're welcome on board. Thank you very much for being part of us. And I also have Mr. Michael Achimpong. He's an agricultural engineer. He's a social investment promotions officer, credited with GIPC, where he collaborates with the agribusiness units of the Ministry of Food and Agri, and as well as the Japan International Crop Agency, to produce an agri-investment guide, among other things. He has achieved so much in the field of agribusiness. And so this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, we are privileged to have this experienced hands in agribusiness, the economy, the politics of agribusiness to discuss with us. And the topic is harnessing the African continental free trade area for sustainable agribusiness development. Harnessing the African continental free trade area for sustainable agribusiness development. Ladies and gentlemen, you are welcome. The floor is now open. But before we go ahead, we're going to have a short break, short video break. Thank you very much. You are welcome, everyone. We're waiting to have a short video break. Okoye, are we ready or should we make progress?
Yes, we are. It will come up. It will come up right away.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's all right. Thank you.
Since 2019, the ECA has been working with its partners, the African Union Commission, the International Trade Center, and the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development on a project financially supported by the European Union to support AfCFTA implementation across Africa. So what is the AfCFTA? Africa currently consists of 55 fragmented markets that are also amongst the fastest growing economies in the world. Yet trade within the continent is the lowest globally. Africa does more trade with those outside its continental borders than with its neighbours. But this is about to change. An agreement on the African Continental Free Trade Area was signed in March 2018 and is expected to increase the share of intra-African trade by up to 50% between 2020 and 2040, liberalise services and tackle other barriers to intra-African trade. So what are the tangible benefits? When fully operational, the AfCFTA will bring together 1.2 billion people with a combined gross domestic product of more than $3 trillion, representing the biggest trade deal since the formation of the WTO, covering not only trading goods, services, investment, intellectual property rights, and competition policy. The agreement is expected to benefit small and medium-sized businesses, which are responsible for more than 80% of Africa's employment and 50% of its GDP. ECA has been working with its partners to support and prepare countries for putting the agreement into practice. This means setting up platforms for dialogue and national regional events for discussion on the AfCFTA, supporting the African Union member states in developing national strategies to ensure countries can implement the AfCFTA considering the characteristics of their own markets, developing an AfCFTA Country Business Index, which will monitor and evaluate the implementation of the agreement for business. In addition to business, also mitigating the challenges, like ensuring the gender and youth-sensitive implementation of the AfCFTA, as well as mobilizing financial resources for implementation. The AfCFTA is an African solution for supporting industrial development, creating new business opportunities, generating jobs, and reducing poverty.
Ladies Ladies and gentlemen, we're ready now for the afternoon session. It's kicking off just about now. And we're going to finish by 5 p.m. Ceteris Paribus. Mr. Adio, Mr. Kazim Adio, the moderator, over to you, sir.
Well, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome to this wonderful discussion. I think the first thing we need to do here is to appreciate the convener, the organizers of this wonderful event. By this, we are short of a better future for Africa, a more secured Africa, and of course, indeed, the whole world. I welcome Mr. Michael Atipong, Dr. Debo Akonde, Mrs. Modupe Olubanjo, and every other person who have joined us in this wonderful program. I'm having a bit of technical difficulty. We had a few challenges earlier on, but I think I'm back on. Hello?
Hello?
Okay. So let's just kickstart the discussion right now. I hope everybody can hear me.
Yes.
A lot of what we did when we heard about the need to discuss this particular topic, which touches everything that dwells on food security. We sent a couple of questions round, wanted people to respond, and just sort of asked them what kind of questions they would like to ask the members of the panel. And a couple of questions came back to us. If we are talking about accelerating food revolution in Africa, and the role, the engine itself, the AfCTA will play is of utmost importance. So a couple of questions came back, and I'm going to be asking so that we can respond and do justice to what we are talking about. The first person that sent in a question, his name is Abdullahi Adamu. He's an agribusiness supply development consultant of the UNDP. And these questions I'd like to just throw it on for whoever wishes to respond. Of course, we need to all respond to it, and then afterwards, I'll be throwing in the individual questions as it relates to our background, so that we can do justice to what we have here. So Abdullahi Adamu asked, he says, what plan does the country have to create an enabling environment so that our goods and services can be competitive? We have issues with power, that is electricity, poor infrastructure, and double taxation or multiple taxes. What plan would you suggest that the country have to create an enabling environment? This question will gradually bring us into the heart of the discussion itself. So, one person can answer after the other, and then afterwards we can start doing individual questioning. Can we all respond to this, please?
Okay, thank you very much. This is Michael on the floor now. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah,
Good.
Go ahead.
Okay, good. When we talk about creating an enabling environment, generally we refer to providing the business-friendly conditions that has to be put in place to propel private sector development. And basically, what I will suggest is our leaders should do their best to invest in basic infrastructure, such as providing good roads, storage facilities, processing facilities, rural electrification, and etc. Basically, this is what I would say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we have is Dr. Debo Akonde there?
Yeah, thank you very much, the moderator, Mr. Adio. Thank you for having me as well. I think for me, one of the critical things that we need to put in perspective is the kind of policy that we have engaged in, either as country or as part of a regional bloc. Why do I say that? When based on the AfCTA that we have now, I think the primary role of the AfCTA is to ensure that trade flows across the whole of Africa seamlessly. But when you have such trade and there is some country-based policy that are restrictive, then it becomes an issue. Many of us heard of what happens in some countries in West Africa, where you have probably business people from one country and are being restricted from doing what they're supposed to do. Of course, that is sometimes might have much more to it. Similar thing applies to Nigeria as well, where we have a kind of a border control for a period of time against some other countries as well. All this kind of a crucial policy needs to be well re-examined to align with whatever we sign or agree with as a regional policy, as it were. But in addition to that as well, I think within, it's been mentioned that infrastructure is very critical. But of this infrastructure, I will focus on two key areas. One, which is the transportation, and second one, which is energy. For transportation, I think we've started really well, maybe a bit slow in terms of rail transportation. And I think we have to focus stronger on that particular area. It is well known that in any nation or any region of the world, continent, where trade has been done well within the country and across the country as well, rail services has been one of the major instruments that supported that. So in most of the countries in Africa, with the exception of the Northern Africa, we really have rail that connects us together, which is faster, which is probably even stronger with goods transportation. So we need to consider that. But lastly, and in addition, I think energy is something else that we all have to also put in perspective. I won't get engaged in much of inter-regional trade or trade within the country where the energy is very poor. We've had, without providing any empirical evidences here, of the numbers of industry that has migrated from Nigeria because of energy issue, and plus, of course, some other issues to other country in Africa. We need to probably focus on all those areas, at the early stage. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Dr. Debo. That was a good one. Well, as a follow-up to that, I know when we build infrastructures, when we try to invest more in energy, transportation, and all others, that would somehow directly help in job creation. But that will also lead me to the next question from one Miss Ife Adeniyi. She's a West African trader. She's also an agripreneur. And her question is more about, she said, okay, if we invest in infrastructures and that's talking about transportation, energy, and the rest of it, and surely there will be creation of jobs. Has individual participants in the sector, how will you ensure that there are no more intrusion of foreign expatriates coming in to take jobs that are supposed to reduce the level of unemployment in the free trade areas? That's the question. And that question, I think, it should be a follow-up one, first for Dr. Debo, and then Mr. Ashmore can join as well.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much once again. Thanks a lot. I think that's a very good question that was raised. But I think what we need to put in perspective is that once we have such a trade agreement in place, we are guided by a policy. We are guided by a regional policy that goes beyond just a nation state. And so it will be very difficult for us to say that when you have such a, I mean, and I don't have a grasp of the totality of the agreement policy now, but having been part of some international instrument in terms of trade agreement, I do understand that it becomes a collective voices and then collective responsibility as well. It will not probably at all times suit a nation state alone. It will suit a nation state, and sometimes it will not suit the other. So what we need to do at early stages is to ensure that we provide a strong negotiation into the AfCFTA to things that actually suit us much more. What we don't tend to do is to look at things at the early stage and negotiate well. But once the negotiation has been in place and we sign it, it becomes binding. You know, you assent to it. Once you assent to it as a government, then it becomes binding. So we need to ensure that we work towards what will be very applicable to us. I know at a point in time, the president of this country did not assent, and suddenly he assented. They are not doing it because they don't just want to assent. It might be a negotiation tactic, you know, for some instrument to be included in the AfCFTA agreement, you know, so that is a possibility. So I think we should continuously, as trader, working with different associations, ensure we get involved at this early stage to make sure that what is in the agreement is right. But having said that, we need to also understand that some issues like the local content can be built even into the AfCFTA. You could request that maybe 10% or 20% off, and I believe we have this already. Maybe it has not been enacted or has not been put in place to use. But with the AfCFTA, I'm not so sure whether we are negotiating for these at all, you know, to talk about the issue of local content, where we can say that a percentage of what will be maybe job in wherever has to have a local content at a particular layer or particular level. I'm aware that in Tanzania currently now, they have a law in place where if you are an expatriate in Tanzania and you have been an expatriate in Tanzania over a period of time and you have not groomed a local, you know, person to take over that position within that period of time, one, you will be asked to leave. And the second thing is that that organization will not be allowed to recruit such an expatriate any longer. You know, this is based on what I know. So I think we can probably imbibe something of that nature as well and put it in perspective. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Achibong, in responding to this question, Dr. Debo has actually done a lot of justice to it. But the angle that I really want you to respond without, you know, repeating what he has said is the quality of individuals. As of today, we have Dr. Kunjo Wiala heading the World Trade Organization. And that's a plus for Africa, a plus for Nigeria. Now, is there a kind of database, you know, that the AfCFTA really have access to, direct access to, that can pull the best out of Africa, best out of Nigeria, to actually add value to, you know, the work need or workload need or labor needs of the AfCFTA? Thank you. Mr. Achibong. Hello. Hello.
I think his network is off at the moment. He'll try to reconnect it.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello?
Yeah, Mr. Achibong, do you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, good. I would like to draw us a little bit backwards. First of all, in connection to the first question that you asked, I'd like to add that efficient land tenure system and access to appropriate rural and agriculture finance can also be added to some of the conditions that can create enabling environment. I think these two factors are very key.
Okay.
Very good. And with your second question too, GIPC here in Ghana as a government agency responsible under the GIPC Act 2013 to encourage and promote investment in Ghana has set out certain criteria as to the kind of investment and expatriates that can get themselves involved in certain businesses in Ghana.
Okay.
Yeah. Or that doesn't answer your question.
No, you've done a bit of it. Okay, you know what? Let's move on. Also, a question was sent in just a few minutes ago, and it says
Okay.
more than 85% of farmers are smallholder farmers and cultivate less than 10 acres of land, especially in Nigeria. To be able to compete effectively in the AfCTA, Nigeria has to have more commercial farms to be able to maximize economics of production, hence reducing the cost of producing our commodities, optimize further processing, etc. Now, the question is, do we have the expertise to drive this, and how will FTA influence this? The second question to that is, how will this affect the smallholder farmers? Now, this question also goes back to the question I tried to ask. If there is a database of qualified individuals of African origin who can actually drive the process, who have been trained within the world trade system to be able to optimize what the AfCTA can, bring out. Do you understand what I'm saying? Dr. Achibong, Mr. Achibong, sorry.
I'm listening to you.
Yes, so the question is, do we have expertise to drive all these policies? Do we have them? Are they working towards achieving the objective, or do they have the capacity? And then, of course, to be able to capture its essence in the future, do we have a database of qualified individuals who can actually drive this process and achieve maximum objective?
Okay, I will only
okay.
I will only speak to issues pertaining to Ghana.
Yeah, speak pertaining to Ghana.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
In Ghana, we have a database of certain professionals, and also we have various associations which are linked to these professionals. For instance, we have the Ghana Institute of Engineers, whereby if, let's say, you want expertise in any engineering field, once you contact them, they can recommend any of the personnel to you. Likewise, we also have the Ghana Bar Association for lawyers. We have the those database on accountants and so on and so forth. So if any of the institutions or companies that would like to operate an AfCTA, they want to tap into any of this skilled labor here in Ghana, I believe we can get those people to get them working.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Debo, one of the consultants with Africa Food Supplies Limited, also a consultant within the UN, Prince Adewopo, that's his name. He particularly wanted me to ask you this question. in view of all that, you've been doing for Africa as far as food security is concerned, through the Oyo State government, through the ITA and other agricultural establishments, institutions. The question is, how much of integrated research and action is ongoing to improve mass seed production and planting materials to meet arable farm needs? What efforts are in place to control and manage the influx of GM foods? Am I making sense, Dr. Debo?
Yes, you are making sense. Thank you very much for the question. I will get into the question you asked, but I will just add a little bit to what was said earlier with regards to the question you asked. One, I think it's also good to mention that maybe one of the area where we as Africans needs to be focusing on much more is what is generally referred to as industrial agriculture. Okay, moving away from the subsistence, kind of agriculture to more of an industrial agriculture. And industrial agriculture means that it doesn't necessarily mean that we will not recognize the role of the smallholder farmers, that has worked so hard for many years. But it's a way of ensuring that the smallholder farmers are incorporated into more of a modernized way of farming. And that is also generally very integrated in nature. So you have the production side, you have the processing side, all encompasses one integral area. But going to the question that you asked, and it's linked to this as well. Overall, I think there's quite a lot of work that has been done actually in terms of research to see production in Africa, but more could be done also. What we mostly find is that between when research is done and when research is scaled is where you have the gap. So you have quite a lot of international research institutes and national research institutes as well that has worked on good varieties. I mean, of course, if those work has not been done up until now, I think generally what we have as crops in different fields will have been an issue. So research has been done over the past years with, like I said, international research institutes and national research institutes. But research is not cheap. Research is a very expensive venture. In addition to that as well, research is not something that comes out within 1 year or 2 years. Sometimes if you are lucky, it comes within a space of a time. So it requires time as well. For research outcome to be in place and for it to be scaled also. But that doesn't mean that there is not a need to do more. We need to do more as research institute. We need to encourage more researchers across Africa and ensure that capacity of researchers are well built. Are well built all over the world, all over Africa, to ensure that we don't we support them as it were. International research institutes, yes, a lot of work being done, but as the capacity within the national research institutes being built, I don't know. But second thing that I will also need to mention is that issue of funding for research is very critical and very important as well. How much of research funding are available for research institutes, which are even national research institutes to be used. And when these funding are even available, how much of that are actually well tailored towards the research that is required. And I'm making reference to more of applied researches here. What we've seen is that the focus of many of the researchers are more to write papers, to publish, and which is good in itself and great. But beyond that, I think product, researching towards product delivery to me is very critical. When you research and there's a product you come up with that will advance a particular agenda, a development agenda, that will be very, very critical and important. So there is the aspect of a need for capacity building within our national research institutes, but there's also a need for funding. But even when those funding are available, where is it channeled towards? Is it channeled towards the area of a particular need? I also think that the research institution needs to start working strongly with the private sector that are actually the ones that scale the research outcome and that most sometimes have a need for all this research outcome. There's been a big disconnect, between the research institutions and all these private sectors that will be supportive in this industrial agriculture that we are making reference to. All this added together, I believe, is going to help us spur the production of seed, as you have made mention, which of course will catalyze crop production along with many other factors that is required also.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Gill. Mr. Ashibong, I mean, a follow-up to that. Dr. Debo has mentioned the need for industrial agriculture, the need to increase funding, the need for capacity building. Apparently, this will lead to increase in productivity. Now, an ordinary smallholder farmer moves directly into industrial agriculture, but his major fear would be, how does he manage the risk involved? The risk of post-harvest management, the risk of transportation or exporting to other parts of Africa, and the rest of it. What exactly can we tell them to reassure, this would be industrial agricultural entrepreneurs, to give them the confidence to be able to maintain or improve on the skill they are currently on? Do you understand what I'm saying? Mr. Achibong? Hello, Mr. Achibong? Hello, can you hear me? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Yes, can you hear me? Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Hello.
Mr. Achibong, can you go ahead?
No, I didn't hear your question because
Did you hear the question?
No, my internet went off, so I'm not using my phone. The internet connected to my laptop went off, so I'm not using my personal phone. So I didn't hear your question. Hello? 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 Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Please repeat your question again. I went offline. I had problem with my laptop, so I have to.
Okay. Now, the question is that Dr. Debo has spoken extensively about industrial culture, the need to, migrate more, the need for more funding, and then the need for capacity building. Now, an ordinary, smallholder farmer migrating towards industrial agriculture obviously would have some certain level of fear about the risk involved. How do you think such risk can be, reduced? Are you with me?
Listen.
How do you think such risk can be mitigated? For example, the issue of post-harvest management, exporting from one African country to the other, and all the bottlenecks which the AfCFTA, charges to deal with. But how do we communicate and reduce the fear and, of course, the risk involved as far as the new incomers to the West African trade or African trade business?
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, I would like to say that the various ministries of agri in the African countries should always do their best to be coordinating well with farmers by assigning extension officers to them who will be guiding them, who will be guiding them as to how they can go about their farming activities, and also provide them with a technical advice on how they can also expand or go into large-scale farming. Without these, it will be very difficult. And also, one other thing is also for these government institutions to set up a baseline information on farmers and how they do, and also assist them with some basic infrastructure like setting up storage facilities as well as processing facilities in order for them to tap into the export market as well. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. For now, we'll leave this aspect of this discussion, but we'll later come back to it because we have some follow-up questions. But because of time, I want to make sure that we cover as much as possible. Now, there's a growing concern about this management of land use. There's an increasing level of conflict related to agricultural production. Now, a lot of people are listening to us all over the world, particularly the stakeholders, those who are hoping to participate in all the goodness that is happening within the Africa sub-region, and of course, the entire cultural sector. The question now is that, are we aware, or perhaps if we are, we should discuss the availability of agricultural insurance if they are in place to secure farmers' loss, particularly due to conflicts. Now, in answering that question, Dr. Debo, you will note that there's a lot of issues concerning herdsmen, grazing, and a lot of issues. How do you advise that these issues be tackled so that at least there can be a kind of peaceful coexistence between, for example, the others and the farmers? I hope you understand this question.
Yes, thank you very much. And thank you for raising this very important question that is becoming a major scourge, around our agricultural architecture, I think in Nigeria and probably with some pockets of countries within West Africa. I think the first thing that I need to mention is that we should not trivialize important issues like this, like many other people has been doing. We as professionals need to always look at the, like the academics we say, the 3 whys, why is this happening? And if we dig deeper into the root of what is happening today, we will know that there is the economical dimension, there is the political dimension, there is historical, there is technical one, so it's multifaceted. It's not just something that we will oversimplify, in terms of where the problem is coming from. But looking at it from the agricultural angle, I think for me, one of the critical things, if we're looking at it from the Nigerian angle, is to be honest and realistic with ourselves and go back to things that we have jointly done that has provided at least some kind of a solution to the problem if we are ready to implement it. There is the National Livestock Policy that has been put in place even under this current government, and led by His Excellency the Vice President of this country, seated under his office. How much of that policy have we looked into? And I believe a lot of international, national and international experts have said that this is a very good policy that they have put in place. Have we looked into it and see how we can implement it to ensure that our farmers, whether they are into livestock or into crop production, are able to do their business the way it should be done. I think one thing we forget much more than often is that whether it is livestock, whether it is crop, if it is not done properly and if we didn't handle it well, it will create a major problem for us, in terms of food security. And I believe we'll probably this year see some of the impact if we send our farmer away from the farms because of some reason. It will impact on us. I believe strongly that as it is done in any advanced economy and in any advanced society, we have a system in place that we can use for a better crop production. I've mentioned industrial agriculture earlier. The similar approach in terms of industrial agriculture needs to be adopted for livestock, as it is. And livestock to me is not just about cattle. I think we simplify livestock to become just cattle. There has been goatry in the southwest of Nigeria for a very long time. That is a system of livestock production that is here, and which even in some more advanced country is more crucial than even the cattle production. Let's go back into that. Let's look at the policy that has been in place. Let's look at the modern approach that we need to adopt in either crop production or livestock production, and we will realize that we will be able to live in peace. It is not a rocket science. We are not doing what has not been done anywhere in the world. And an idea has the question that if we make reference to the issue of livestock rearing, the way it is now, it is not a poor man business. So we need to be able to question those businesses that are sending those that are working with it, why they do that. I mean, if you have a herd of cattle of around 20 or 30, which is of course an average of what an herdsman walk around with, you're talking about business that runs in millions. So if you're holding a business that runs in millions, why can you not provide a facility that is required for you to run that kind of a business? I don't want to oversimplify this because, like I said, there are multifaceted issues around it. But basically, my advice would be that let's look at national policy. I mean, if it's limiting it to Nigeria, but if we are talking holistically beyond Nigeria, we also have to be well guided in ensuring that we adopt modern approaches, either in crop production or livestock production as well.
Well, thank you, Dr. Debo. That was a very good one. Mr. Achibong, I believe Ambassador Olukani will be joining us. If the moment is on this platform, the admin should quickly allow me. I have a couple of questions before we round up. But Mr. Achibong, yes. Still on the farmer elder crisis, especially within the trade line along Nigeria, Ghana. What do you think, in your own view, should be done to urgently stem this ugly tide and its negative impact on West Africa agricultural food supply chain value? Okay. Supply value chain, I mean. What do you think, in your own view, should be done?
Okay, thank you very much for your question. The farmer header conflict is a regional issue in general, with severe implications for countries, for all the West African countries as well. And I recommend that the following should be done or to be implemented. One, there should be a clear demarcation of grazing and farming lands by the respective governments and their traditional authorities or local authorities to avoid the cattle or the livestock stray into other people's farm. Okay. Strict measures should be put in place, I say, to punish anyone who fails to comply with this directive. So the headman or the header should know that, look, this is where my animals should be confined in or with. This is where they should graze. And this is where the farmer also has to do his own cultivation of foodstuffs. My second point too is the need for the construction of dams and boreholes to be used purposely for animal rearing. The local authorities can do this by using funds that they will generate from taxing the herdsmen or farmers within their locality to finance some of these projects. Okay. My third point will also be there should be a nationwide registration of herdsmen to enable the government to tax them as well.
Okay.
And the other one too should be there should also be the creation of fodder banks, so that the herdsmen can use during the dry season to prevent the seasonal migration of herdsmen in search of pasture. This can be done through a collaboration between the respective governments and any of the international organizations or African Development Bank. And lastly, there should be an education to sensitize both the farmers and the herdsmen not to use violence to resolve some of the conflicts that normally happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Archibald. May I seize this opportunity to welcome Ambassador Olukoni. You are welcome to our midst. The question that I've been waiting for you, I particularly left this one because with your wide experience within the African terrain and beyond, we just want you to respond to the fact that, yes, we know that we have issues that we must sort out within the agricultural sector within Africa. But what fiscal policies and incentives can the African governments take to attract private sector investment, to modernize our present grazing methods, which you'll agree with me is outdated? And then, of course, how can private investment be attracted and encouraged into ranching, dairy, beef production, tanning, and a lot more that Dr. Debo has mentioned in the livestock value chain? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. First, let me apologize. I hope you can hear me. I'm speaking to you from inside the car. I was on a flight for 10:30. The flight did not leave until about 2 o'clock. I just got in safely into Abuja and I'm running to another meeting. And now, but I sincerely hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you clearly.
Okay, sir. Okay, so my apologies. I'll be very brief. First, I thank WAS for this invitation. I think the first thing I would like to make reference to is the National Livestock Production Plan. It is very, very important, and I'm not sure it is well known. It is supposed to be a national livestock program under one of the special advisors to the president for Agri, Dr. Andrew, which has been presented. But unfortunately, it was overshadowed by the Ruga debate. But that initiative is there to be able to do modern ranching, cattle, and the entire value chain. I want to crave your indulgence that it is important for us to look at that program. Very well. I think what I will do is that one of these days, maybe subsequently, we can work closely, Nasima, with WAS to be able to look at that particular program itself. It is very, very important. And I think it's one of the ways in which we can have, we can solve this crisis. Because the problem which is now we are now having is that the herdsmen farmers crisis is overshadowing the entire agri value chain in West Africa. And I think it's something which, of course, at the level of West Africa itself, ECOWAS, which is being looked at, because it is only when you sort that one out that you can say, okay, fine, you can now attract and bring in, you know, the private sector in terms of financing. And there are very many people who want to come to that place. But against the background of the security problems, it could be very, very difficult. But having said that, I think the successes which we have had with intervention in terms of the rights, Anchors Borrowers Program, is an indication of the potentials. But apart from that too as well, we also have to look at beyond agriculture, at agri-value chain, agri-business value chain. It is key and very important.
So let's go straight. Okay. So yeah, thank you. Yeah, for
that's one of the things, the point which I always
I want to ask some question about the.
Are you still with me? Yeah.
I'm with you. We're with you. We're with you. We can hear
Hello?
you. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go on.
So, like I said, okay. Yeah. I composed the question that how many of us are very much aware of the national program? Because it also has federal bank itself, which a private sector. I'm very glad if some of us who are on this platform can speak to that or confirm that yes, they are very much aware of it. But like I said, because of the Ruga, you know, has overshadowed it in terms of looking at the entire value chain as far as national livestock itself, of the question of the herdsmen themselves. It's going to be modern farming. I mean, in terms of the heads, in terms of our livestock itself. And I give an example. I was High Commissioner to also cover New Zealand and cattle, and some of them are even SMEs. In terms of the economics with the plan, because it's one of the areas we will look at. There is amount of money which is allocated for agri, about 300 billion in terms of the amount of money which is which we should look at. But since we are talking about West Africa, it is necessary for us to look at so that to see what we can do approach as the agri itself is concerned. It's something which we are working with intensive African chambers of commerce. It's all right. Sorry, like I said, that it's been a very tough day for me. Swinging in from the airport in Lagos and missing my flight and coming. I sincerely hope that next time around I'll be able to come in with something more complex. But I want to propose to us that Nasima is ready to work with you specifically, and perhaps to look at the whole question of the livestock industry in context of West Africa, because the issue of Fulanis, the issue of cattle across West Africa is key and very important. And because of the security dimension of it, I think we need to look at it more in depth in terms of what's to be done in terms of the solution which we're looking for. I thought I should just make those brief remarks. I'm sorry that I will not be able to continue much, but I'm waiting and listening if there's any other question which I can take. Thank you very much.
Because of you're moving from one location to the other. The line has been kind of somehow. But anyway, we really appreciate your contribution. And that's what they say about experience being the best teacher. We are hoping that with the likes of you and others, being put to good use, we would have a more profiteering and benefiting venture as far as the agri sector is concerned, especially within the African Trading Unit. Now, as a rounding up question, and I want us to carefully dwell on this one. Of course, there'll be follow-up question, but this is the major question that is going to round it up. And it's about, for Nigeria, this particular agreement, trade agreement, where do you think it will position Nigeria in the next 10, 20 years to come? And of course, from the Ghanaian perspective or Ghana perspective, where do you see Ghana being positioned in the scheme of the African agricultural trade? Then the question that touches on the two, and of course other parts of Africa, how do we maximize the AfCFTA to improve the devaluation of our currency that is currently going on? So if Ambassador Olukoni can just put that as his parting shot, and then followed by Mr. Achipong and then Dr. Debo.
Well, thank you very much. I will be very brief with that. The AfCFTA, of course, is indeed a major achievement for us in Africa. It took about 60 years before we got to this place. But I think it is also very important for us to realize that the AfCFTA is not a 100-meter dash. It is a long-distance race. We need to understand that. It's a long-distance race, and this is something we should start working on in terms of, and it is possible to be a win-win for all African countries. So long as you, one, do your proper assessment in terms of your areas of strength, and then of course, the whole question of the issues of tariff, rules of origins, and things like that. I would recommend to all of us the report of the meeting of the Council of Ministers. Council of Ministers that's reviewed the AfCFTA, I think sometimes in February. It's a very important report. Let us go and look at it. It looked at the various areas in terms of the AfCFTA, especially since trading started. And then also the role which Africa Agribusiness and others can play in terms of credit facility, about $1 billion, which is started to capacitate and help countries as far as this is concerned. Also, I say that in my own experience, and I'm giving practical example, that just not to, as part of looking at what exactly is happening, we started going around our members, and we found out somebody who currently is producing coffee, brewed coffee in Nigeria, just behind my office there, an SME, and is trying to satisfy the Nigerian market. Now, the market is huge. They cannot do it. Brewed coffee, because millennial generation are those who want to go to the Starbucks office, cafe, and make. Now, this company has gone to acquire additional land on the road to between Abeokuta and as well as the Shagam Junction. 2 additional acres with the intention to grow Nigerian coffee and ready to compete with the Ethiopian coffee as well as also Kenyan coffee. So this is an example of an SME taking a long view of the future and start getting ready for that. So it is necessary for us, and also it is also important at our own national level to also see what we can do and work closely with the National Action Committee on the AfCFTA. So within West Africa, part of the thing we should do, which is being done within the framework of the AfCFTA, each of our countries is supposed to also set up our own national Action Committee on the AfCFTA. So it will be very good and very important for us to be able to, at our national level, to be able to work closely. But beyond that, the ECOWAS is also working closely as far as this is concerned. And this is something which I think we should look at. Let me make a final point as far as this is concerned. NACIMA is working closely with the AfREX, and the AfREX have the MANSA platform. The MANSA platform is supposed to help SMEs and others to be able to capacity to be able to trade in context of payments. Because if we want to give meaning to the AfCFTA, it does not make sense if we are trading and we cannot do payment. So the MANSA platform is also a very important platform for us within the framework of ECOWAS as well. And as we are working closely with them, we've held a meeting with them on the MANSA platform in terms of the question of easy payment as far as that is concerned. And those are the issues. But the point I like to leave is at the end of the day, like I said, the AfCFTA is not a 100-meter dash. It is a long distance race, and let each and every one of us continue to look at areas of strength and so that we can be able to make it a win-win for each and ourselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Lukoni. Mr. Achibong, over to you. Mr. Achibong.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay,
yes,
what I also
ahead.
want to say is that the AfCFTA agreement presents Africa with a unique opportunity to unleash its economic potential for inclusive growth and sustainable development. Secondly, too, the AfCFTA could play an important role in facilitating intra-regional trade in agri-food products, including from surplus to deficit areas, thereby stabilizing food prices and improving food security. And lastly, what I also want to say is that the AfCFTA also offers an opportunity to promote agricultural transformation and improve competitiveness through regional agricultural value chain development. For this to happen, many countries will require accompanying policies, that is new policies, to improve productive capacities and promote investment for value addition. Thank you.
Dr. Debo, Dr. Akande.
Thank you very much. I think for me, I'm an optimist, about the AfCFTA, and I believe it's going to do us a lot of good. But having said that, I think it's very essential for us not to get carried away with the AfCFTA, but to reflect strongly on some areas and some issues. I think we should reflect and learn from other regional agreements that has been in place in some other places in the world, and check why some work and why some is not working. We all know about the European Union Treaty, and we have seen what happened with the issue of Brexit, with the European Union. Now, why is it after 20 or how many years that they've been together, this is happening? I personally think that it is ensuring that there is a reflection, around what national government is bringing on table. At different countries, with the AfCFTA, we may assume that is all well thought out now, but there's nothing wrong in us learning from what has taken place. I believe they all also have a strong thought with regards to the European Union treaty before things happen like this. WTO is there, and other agreements, bilateral, other agreements in different other countries that has to do with trade. But I also think that we should, secondly, be very conscious of externalities that may impinge on this AfCFTA. We know that trade is about interest. You look at, we saw what happened with the WTO leadership, how cumbersome it become with the US government, ensuring that somebody that is stronger and that have the interest of the American government, among every other interest, will be the one that lead the WTO, and there's nothing wrong with that. For every sovereign state, maybe with the exception of a few of countries in Africa, ideal thing is for you to look at the sovereignty of your country and what the interests of your countries will be, And of course, not necessarily at the detriment of others, but much more of what, and that's why it's a sovereign state. So in doing that, I think there will be some sovereign states. I don't want to mention names now, but we all know some of the superpowers in the world that will be handling for what we're calling the AfCFTA, and that externalities will be there. We have to be very conscious of them coming in different colors and shades. I've heard that a good numbers of some countries or some blocks are already coming to some region of Africa now and establishing kind of an extension of their production companies from their countries in that particular location, taking citizenship and things like that. We need to put that in perspective, that is very, very crucial. We also need to look strongly about the issue of border control, migration. If I, as an European Union citizen, can go to Tanzania to go and trade without any visa, or I have an easy visa at entry point to do my trading. If I had traveled from Nigeria to Ghana, or Ghana to Nigeria, or Nigeria to South Africa, I don't feel as if the measure for me to come in to even have a negotiation on a particular trade issue is very stringent. Then those externalities are still there as reality. So we need to look at all those things that has to do with migration, and law and access, that will be very, very crucial. And I think finally, we need to ensure that we don't just, again, trivialize this. We look at the legal and institutional affairs that is existing, within the AfCFTA very well. We look at all the barriers and non-barrier, non-tariff barrier trade rules, and we ensure that things like the sanitary and phytosanitary measures are not becoming a means of hindrance, to trade, even though as important as they have. Finally, I think for me, we have to ensure that with the trade facilitation, we ensure that we don't just focus on the national government in a nation like Nigeria that is this big, but we look at sub-national as well. Because if you ask me, if you do a little survey about the AfCFTA across business in states or at local government level, they may know next to nothing about what we are discussing about. So it remains to be a big picture up there that does not translate to reality, on ground. I think we need to be very conscious of all this while we are talking about the AfCFTA. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Debo. Before we finally call it a day, I'd like to ask if there's any members, I'm talking about the attendees, those who are also listening to us, whose voices can be heard. If there's any question whatsoever, before we round up, is there any contribution from those listening to us? Is there any? Okay. Well, almost all the questions that we've been treating ever since we started this discussion were actually sent in by the members of the public within West Africa and Africa in totality. So apparently, the conversation continues.
Mr. Dio, this is Okwe, please.
Yes.
We have a question here on the platform.
Okay.
Yes, I would read out the question and then you can decide as to who would respond to it.
Okay.
Thanks for your presentations. I am Dr. Albert Ugochukwu, a senior policy fellow in food security with the Global Institute for Food Security, Canada. I would like to know the level of interdisciplinary research collaboration to enhance food security in Africa. Second, any plans to put up a database for agricultural researchers and consultants? I know we have many professionals working within and outside Africa. That's the question, please.
Thank you very much. The second question, I believe, has been touched by both Dr. Debo and Mr. Achipong. They can maybe just put a light on it a little bit more. So what we'll do is we'll have Mr. Debo speak about the agricultural professionals database or researchers database. And then Mr. Achipong can then re-emphasize what he mentioned about the other policy. Can Dr. Debo go first?
So I think what we can say about a professional database is that we can say a professional database, as it were, one professional database. But there are so many organizations, there are so many bodies, in different countries that are meant for different professionals. I know we have an agribusiness group in Nigeria here, where you have so many professionals, as part of that particular group. I know we have the engineering society. I know we have different kind of society organizations, that are available. I know we also have a lot of diasporian organization, that are working together and that probably have the list. But what has not happened is that probably this has not been properly pulled together as a place where you could get a pool of resources, to engage, in many of these areas that we are talking about. I mean, in most cases, when we go outside the country, you will see how Nigerians are thriving in different areas and different fields, or probably Africans in general are thriving in different areas and different fields. But maybe that has not been well put together for us to have the database, where we can access. And I think this will be very essential, as we go forward, so that we can manage this. I will look at something that India did, where they have what they call the Ministry of Diaspora. We are headed by a minister, now, and they are able to kind of access, develop a database of the diasporians, and access that for development of their country. But I'm not limiting to diasporian, but people even within the country, within their different organizations, should start looking at how best they can pull this together now. Thank you very much.
Mr. Achibong?
I would also like to make a remark when Mr. Achibong finishes.
Mr. Achibong.
Ambassador
Lukomi, I'm coming to you. I have something that will link you with this question, but let Mr. Achibong respond. Is he there? Okay, Ambassador Lukomi.
Well, thank you. My quick reaction to this is the old question about the link between the town and gown. A lot of research, a lot of data are available all across the places. But the question is, to what use do we put this? The whole crisis, the whole problem in all our universities and all over the place. And I say this against the background of my own experience. And let me give a good example, because it's always good to give good example. What we did in Nasima was to reach out to the IITA, the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, in Ibadan, because we said we really want to see because they're also struggling. And I was at the 50th anniversary of the IITA, and the IITA was saying that, look, listen, we need to come out to the market now to let people know what we have. But the constituting instrument is one of the things that is hampering the IITA. But despite that, a lot of research is going on. A lot of data is available in the IITA. So we have an MOU with IITA now. Take, for example, now the Agripreneur initiative of the IITA is a very good example in terms of bringing in young people. And through that, you can be able to tap into various research findings. And also, the IIT also has its own gene bank. All of these are there. So it is left for us to try and see how we can tap into all those places in terms of what is done. So that's one of the things which we are doing. And I think across West Africa, if you look at the West African Rice Institute itself, it's been there for a long time. It has also made a lot of effort, but it is necessary to bridge the gap between the West African rice. I mean, how can we have the West African Rice Institution, which has been there forever, and then we still continue to go and import rice from Thailand? This is one of the challenges. So I think it's necessary for us to, well, as somebody who also worked with this diaspora too as well, because as part of my experience in the foreign service, 35 years, serving in all the continent, serving New York, Tel Aviv, and other places, and of course, ending up in Australia, I know that in the African diaspora, the Nigerian diaspora, a lot of our people are there. And so the institution that can help, of course, we have the National Diaspora Commission now, but it is possible to link up very many of our researchers across the various places to some of our universities to work closely together. And that was one of the things I did when I was in Australia. Identify Nigerian professionals who are in Australia and link them up to universities in Nigeria. And also some of them who are also from Ghana, who are with me in Australia, we were able to work closely with them and link them up also to institutions in Ghana so that they can bring their experiences in those places to bear in terms of home. So I mean, it is not there's no silver bullet to it, but let us consciously see that those institutions that are here, I've mentioned ITA, we have FILO, we also have all across the West African places as well. It is left for us and also to reach out. And that's what I'm saying, that specifically in NACIMA, we look out for this research institution and ask them, what do you have that we can bring to the table, that we can bring to our farmers, which they can be, which can be useful. I just thought I should share those experiences and make those remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Lukani. You know, Mr. Achibong is going to respond as well, but I threw a question, and this is just within the next, we should round up within the next 5 minutes. I threw a question about how all these affects our currencies, you know, the devaluation, the strengthening. Nobody has actually touched on it. Is there, while Mr. Achibong would respond to the trending question, he should also quickly touch the issue of currency. Is he there? Mr. Achibong? It seems, okay. Well, Dr. Debo, your parting shot, in case you want to mention something about our currency.
Well, I just want to say big thank you for organizing this and bringing us together to have this discussion. I reiterate again, and has been mentioned by one of the panelists, for us as an institute, International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, we are open to many of the way we can support the African continent on the AfCTA, especially when it comes to the issue of agriculture and agribusiness and industrial agriculture, as it were. And we're already getting prepared to ensure we do that. We are present in almost all the countries in the Sub-Saharan Africa. Where we don't have, or currently present, we work with our partners within the CGIA Center. And we do all what is necessary and what is important to ensure we do it. From the Oyo State side, I can rightly tell you that we are building strongly on what we have as a comparative advantage, which is agriculture. We are developing the state as an agribusiness hub of the country. And very soon, we'll start seeing what this means as we build infrastructure.
Thank you very much. Well, it has been a wonderful discussion, but of course the conversation wouldn't stop here. It will have to continue from here. We learned from this discussion that we are a long distance race from saying we've achieved anything. And Dr. Debo actually, brought us close to the fact that there is a need to continue to assess our strengths, our weaknesses, the opportunities and the threats that are in the AfCTA. So Africa is a long distance race. It's not just 100 meters run. We should also, of course, learn from the mistakes of others, especially those who have entered this kind of agreements in the past. And then, of course, we should put our mouth where our words are, that is implementation of policies. When we say, then we should do. Of course, there was also issues raised about the need for research to have a direct relationship with implementation. And finally, that we should put life on the agreements and make sure that they are attractive to all the stakeholders. Of course, to better our economies, to increase, to reduce unemployment, and to strengthen our inter-trade relations. So on that note, I'll want to appreciate every single person that has participated in this conversation. We will be issuing more like a communique about all that we have discussed. And I believe with that as an input into the discussion, it will enrich it further. So I want to thank the West Africa Agribusiness team who have put this together. I don't know if the admin, Ms. Okwe, would want to drop a word or two.
Thank you, Mr. Dio. Oh, what an insightful session. Thank you so much for your time. For this particular session, I'd like to thank especially the participants, the moderator, and the panelists. It took a lot of sacrifice for them to be here today, from meeting to meeting, from different occasions that they attended. And like Ambassador Olukuni mentioned, after several delayed flights, he got to Abuja and immediately he joined. Thank you, sir. We appreciate you very much. We appreciate Nasima for always heeding to our call whenever we call upon them. Thank you so much. We'd like to thank all our participants today for being part of today's session. We thank you for your contributions. We thank you for listening in. We thank you for your support for the West Africa Agribusiness Show. The discussions continues tomorrow. It's a 3-day panel session, colloquium. Tomorrow our discussions will be centered on data and our youths, how they can be more engaged in agriculture. Today's session, both sessions we've had today have been quite insightful, and we do hope that gradually, bit by bit, we will contribute our quota as agribusiness stakeholders to further promote the agriculture sector and generally the welfare of Nigerians and Africans as a whole. Once again, I'd like to thank our sponsors, our partners, FAMSON, Livestock Feeds PLC, we have Rome Business School, West Africa Fertilizer Association, we have the NASIM, Nigerian Association of Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture, headed by our Director General, Ambassador Olukoni. Thank you so much. We'd like to thank Agro Nigeria, our media partners, and Livestock News. Like I said, tomorrow by 10 a.m., we would start the morning session. We'd appreciate it if you can join. From here and on behalf of the team, I'd like to say thank you to you all for joining today's session, and we do hope that tomorrow you'll be a part of us. Thank you and have a blessed evening.
I have with me some of our distributors from the Republic of Benin. Can we meet you, please?
I'm Samuel Obona. I'm a businessman, Twitters group of company. We are from Benin Republic. We are here to see the product of PSC Nigerian Limited here in Ikeja, to know how the business, the product will move forward in Benin Republic, and we are here with the Director General, Dr. Patrick Owele.
Now that you've come to Lagos, Nigeria to see our products for yourselves, what is your advice for the Republic of Benin as regards to our solar products?
There is no way of not convincing our customers to come and buy PSC solar products. Nous invitons toute la population du Bénin à adopter les produits PSC solar.